Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter, that is Tim. He's looking around as if there's something in the room. I don't know what's going on. We talk about horror movies on this show, and on this episode, we are actually going to be. It's funny because the last episode we talked about the oldest movie we've ever done in this show. On this episode, we're talking about the first ever movie we've done from Thailand.
Oh, get out. We haven't done that?
I don't think so. I don't believe we've done any Thai movies, but.
That's fair.
Obviously, we've done some Asian horror, and this falls into the Asian horror category, and I'll be comparing it to some other Asian horror movies. But this is a Shutter, which was remade by the US about 2008, I think. But this original's from 2004. Obviously, it's in Thai, and we're going to talk about it. So we'll start spoiler free, and we'll give you a warning before we get into spoilers. But we basically just watched this because we wanted to try with something we hadn't seen before, and this was sort of one of the things that we knew about for a long time, and
it's always been on like our radar.
Yeah, I think. It's kind of funny how we're getting to the point now, because I remember when I first seriously got into movies, and I was really like I started to seek
last
out,
year.
I seriously started to seek out classics. I started to look, seriously look for different types of movies, and especially horror movies. I try to have an eclectic taste and be prolific. And this all kind of started when I was in my teens. And basically anything that's been released from my teens, which was, basically the early to mid 2000s onwards, I think of as a recent movie.
Filthy millennial.
I think of as a recent movie. And it's getting kind of weird now that I'm going, oh yeah, this has been on my radar. This is a recent movie that I've been meaning to watch. And then I go to watch it and it says 2004. And I'm like, shit, that was 13 years ago. Where has the time gone? It took me 13 years to watch Shutter. Oh well. Tim.
Yes.
Or I usually explain the plot though before I ask if you liked it, don't I? I should explain the plot.
Sure.
Okay, so a couple accidentally hit a woman in their car, and the man named Tun just makes Jane, who's the girlfriend, drive off, and they feel guilty, and he's a photographer, and he starts seeing creepy things in his photographs, implying that the spirit of this woman might be chasing them down out of vengeance. And then there's a bit more to it. There's some twists and turns down the road, but that's kind of the idea. So they're being haunted. It's an Asian horror movie. I keep wanting to say J horror, but it's not J horror because J horror is Japan. So it's an A horror. It's an Asian horror movie.
I feel like though it does have a Japanese feel to it.
Oh yeah,
like it reminded me of other Japanese movies we watched.
It is definitely a movie that was made because The Ring was successful. There's no question. The Ring inspired this. It just did. It's part of that wave. But Tim, did you enjoy Shutter?
Before I get into my thoughts, do you mind if I take a poo first?
For people who have not watched the movie, that is a reference to a scene later on. We'll talk about that in spoilers. I feel like we can't spoil the poo scene until we get to spoilers.
So I watched this on Shudder.
You watched Shutter on Shudder. You just do it. Let clarify.
I wanted to actually part of me did want to watch it in the bathroom just so I could say I watched Shudder on Shudder in the shitter. But
well, here's a question, Tim. Do you want to say shut the book? It's a fantastic movie, or do you want to say shut the door, kick it out, shut the door, and let it never back in because it's bad? What's your thoughts? What's your opinions? How are you feeling? Did you like Shutter?
I did. It was okay. I think the problem, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit, with the likeness to Ringu and that sort of thing, is I feel like I just watched this too late. If I would have watched this in 2008, 2009, I probably would have loved it. Having watched it now and seeing a lot of stuff that I feel like I'm just used to, and not saying that it's like unoriginal or anything, but there's just a lot of I guess ideas and a kind of creepiness in it that I guess I'm used to at this point. So I don't want to be too harsh on it. I still thought it was good, but I wasn't like over the moon for it or anything.
Yeah, I would also agree with the it's okay sort of sentiment. I think there's a couple. There's like two or three moments that I really liked, but there was also a lot of the scares. Almost anything that was about the ghost jumping out and causing a jump scare, I didn't like. Most of those felt really forced and kind of cheap. We had not one but two waking up from a jump scare. It was only a dream. Don't worry. At least in this one, though, I can almost forgive it because it kind of ties into the theme of the movie, where they're feeling guilty about what's happened and it's on their mind, so they're dreaming about it. I can. It's still annoying, but I can almost see the justification for it, at least in this one. And the movie goes down and it feels a lot like something like Ring, where it becomes about investigating why this is happening and where it's come from. The fact that they're seeing weird shapes on like photographs feels very Ring-like, because that's part of what's in the Ring as well. It almost feels like it's the Ring, but without the clear start. Because in the Ring, of course, you watch the tape, you get the phone call, you're going to die in 7 days. There's a countdown, there's a timer. Whereas here, it's like there's not a clear. I mean, obviously they knock the woman down. That's the start of the movie, but there's not a clear start of this is where the horror begins, and it just kind of gradually happens, and then they're like, all right, we need to investigate this, and then there's like twists and turns, and you see how it's related to everything. And some of the twists or some of the reveals worked for me and made it about something a bit more interesting than just being like revenge scary plot.
I mean, there's one big reveal towards the end that I kind of cringed at a little bit. I was like, I don't know if this was really necessary. But yeah, other than that, like it kind of feels weird with the Ring or something. There's a very like like a natural setup to investigating and solving this mystery. Well, there's a mystery, in this as well, but it didn't feel as organic, I guess. Yeah, it felt like, oh, we're kind of just investigating this now just because there needs to be like plot in the movie. You know what I mean?
Kinda, and that's why to me it kind of feels like, how after Die Hard there was a bunch of Die Hard knockoffs. This very much feels like it's a Ring knockoff. It's not a bad Ring knockoff per se. Like I said, there's some moments that work really well that I'll talk about in spoilers, but a lot of the ghosts like jumping out, like some of the editing for the jump scares is a bit off and feels a bit cheap. There's, and this isn't spoilers, but there's a moment where we're looking at a photograph and we kind of see the ghost figure in the photograph, and I'm like, it's about to move, and I basically counted down like 3, 2, 1, and sure enough it did, and it just, so it was kind of a whimper in that sense. Like I wasn't, some of the scary stuff wasn't quite working. There was some genuinely creepy moments though that came from other things, and I'll talk about them in spoilers, but that's what I felt.
It also seemed like there was some weird, well, I don't know if it's weird, but there was some bigger stuff that it kind of just glossed over that like you don't really see in the movie. Like certain characters that's just like all of a sudden like, oh yeah, that person died too, and you're like, wait, what? Like, is that something we maybe should have saw?
I will say it, there is some interesting ideas in this. I actually really liked the ending. But the last like 5 minutes I thought were pretty good. It did something really kind of fun and crazy with it that I thought was cool. So I appreciate some of the ideas that went into it. It's just it struggles to escape this feeling of, oh, it's doing the Ring thing, and some of it's good, but some of it's not. And there's even a scene where like the long-haired ghost comes out of something, although it's much more amusing than a TV. We'll talk about that in spoilers. But yeah, so that's kind of how I feel about it as a whole.
Yeah, it's
it's not a bad watch. Like I wouldn't stop anyone from watching it. If you like Asian horror movies, you're going to. It's a fun enough romp for what it is.
Yeah, and again, like I said, if this was the, if I watched it right away when it came out, when I had only seen 1 or 2 other Asian horror movies, this might have been like, whoa, like this is a really cool, creepy thing that I've never seen before. It just really suffers, from that little bit of a familiarity that I kind of have with it now. And not just like movies too. Like there's like like some video game stuff that kind of reminded me of. Um,
A little bit of Fatal Frame in there.
yeah, definitely.
Just a little bit of that. No, I get you. I get you. So I think we're going to spoilers. I think we can stop dancing around things now. So full spoilers from this point on for Shutter. So, right. So the movie kind of like becomes something else. Like, quite early on, I got the sense that okay, it's like the actual car accident isn't the cause. It's something before that. Like the main guy Tun. He his friend was called Ton, though, which is why I'm mixing them up. But Tun, he I could tell that okay, this is something to do with his past. Like, this goes deeper back because the opening scene's like him and his like 3 friends from like college at a wedding, and we're introduced to them. And I thought obviously this is important. We're being introduced to all these characters, and it became quickly. And I actually did like the backstory. Like, see when he actually told the story of like what happened with her. Because basically, we find out that the spirits that follow people in photographs typically tend to be someone who was close or cared about the people in them. And it might be vengeful, but it tends to be someone who was close. And he tells a story about, okay, so that this girl, Natri, he dated in college, but he kept it secret from all his friends because all of his friends thought she was weird. She was a quiet, kind of weirdo, bit of a loner, but they started dating anyway, behind everyone's backs. And she really cared about him, he didn't really care about her, and then he was a complete dick and let them like mock her in public and all this stuff, and then he eventually just kind of dumped her and broke up with her. It just very kind of shitty, bordering on abusive. Well, actually it's not even bordering. It wasn't abusive when he was just with her, but when he was like pretending not to be with her, it was like full on like no, stick up for her.
Just on the off chance that like you had a little bit of sympathy for this guy. Like, we're gonna.
This is the weird thing about this movie is that it actually, by the end of the movie, you're basically like, yeah, everyone who died kind of deserved it.
Oh yeah.
I'm kind of cool with this now. Actually, like I'm on the ghost side. Me and the ghost are okay. And that's the other thing is you get this impression that the ghost isn't actually wanting to hurt June, or Jane, sorry, not June. I keep getting the syllables wrong. Jane's Tun's girlfriend, right? And she's like seeing creepy stuff as well. She's also getting scared. She's feeling really guilty about the car accident, and he's not. Which, to be fair, is actually good writing. They set this idea up that he actually doesn't feel guilty about things. That he just sweeps it under the rug and just forgets about it. Where she actually does care. She does have a conscience.
He was the one that was like, just drive away, like.
Yeah. Which, to be fair, is actually quite smart. This is where I think the movie actually really works. It seeds all of its reveals really well. The fact that it opens with him and his friends and they're all joking about being playboys, the car accident, it actually seeds all this stuff really well. And we find out that his friends, his other 3 main group of friends, have all committed suicide. We find that out like halfway through the movie. We see the main one, Ton, do it, but the other 2 have already died. Which is what you were talking about, where it's these people have already died. All right, okay.
You'd think like it. I mean, I guess you don't have to show them, but it felt like a little bit of a shock to me, like just being like, all right, we just got rid of these 2 characters that.
I didn't have a problem with that. I actually kind of like the idea that it just kind of like it just sees the after effects of it. The 2 things that I thought was weird about it was, one, I felt like there should have been more of a tease that Ton was going a bit crazier, like before the scene where he showed up at the house, and then the next scene he dies. I thought maybe seed that a little bit more, and I also thought it was really weird that somehow Tun didn't hear about the fact that 2 of his closest friends had already committed suicide. Because Tom was married at the start of the movie, and his new wife shows up at the hospital after he's dead, and she's like, "Well, you didn't hear about your 2 other friends? They're both committed suicide as well." And it's like, how would he not have heard about that?
Yeah.
That's weird. So that felt false to me.
Yeah. At the very least, like, this isn't that far ago. Like, you don't have Facebook or something?
Facebook didn't exist then, but yeah, that's fair.
Well, like 2008? Yeah.
2004.
Oh, 2004.
The remake was 2008.
Oh, right. All right, yeah.
Yeah. So shut up.
Well, Facebook did exist. It just wasn't. It was like for college students.
Yeah, but it wasn't. People had it. It wasn't something that everyone had.
Right.
So Yeah.
All right, I'll give you that.
And certainly even then, it was like a couple of colleges in the US. I'm pretty sure it wasn't colleges in Thailand as well. I could be wrong. Maybe it was colleges all over the planet,
Well,
but
I remember I got it my freshman year in college, which would have been 2004, and you could only sign up if you had a like an EDU email.
what, who's the old man now, Tim?
You?
Oh, you. I was still in high school in 2004. So
Oh, it
suck
took you
it.
that long to...
Oh, Tim, I hate you sometimes. Where was I? I was talking about yeah. So you get the sense that the ghost on the tree is actually helping Jane. She's trying to because this is one of the first cool things I thought it did with the photographs is the idea that you could see the ghost moving through all the photographs, and she could see the thing moving from this build, this certain floor in the building. So she goes up and investigates. It's like the science lab in the college. And she finds this is where she finds out about this girl, which prompts her to ask about her, and that's when he has to tell her about the him dating her and everything that happened. But you kind of get to say because at one point she's like, so what happened? Why has she been so vengeful? What's causing all this? And he just says this is after he's told her most of the story. Like, oh, Ton said he would take care of it. I don't know what happened. And right there, you're like, okay, no, there's more to this. Something bad. And it was at that point in the movie where I said, okay, they probably raped her. I can kind of see where it went. I just assumed it was going to be like some sort of gang rape at the end, in the flashback. And sure enough, it kind of was. When we find out all this at the end. And again, this was the thing, is they think they've dealt with it. They go to where she is, and Natri's mother apparently keeps her corpse in her bedroom. That's
She's all kinds of messed up.
But they basically have her cremated. They think that's all it's solved. There's a couple of cool moments though throughout. But before I get to the end and we talk about the final flashback and how the movie ends, I do want to talk about a couple of scenes.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to talk about a couple of scenes that I did think worked really well. When they're talking about the suicides and we see. I think it cuts to like one of the other friends. We see them jumping off the roof of a building as we're hearing about it. I thought that was really effective actually. Just the shot, it was like sort of blue, kind of late at night, or just getting dark, and you could see him jumping off the building. There was a good mood to it. It was a good sort of sense of loneliness and desperation.
Yeah, and it was pretty impressive too, like the way he jumps off and then it kind of follows him, and then you look over the side and you see it.
I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about that scene.
Oh, okay.
That was just fine as well. I'm talking about it cuts to at one point there's like a montage of the other friends committing suicide.
Oh, okay.
And it was just this mood of sort of like blue nighttime sky, and the guy and the music was working really well. It had this sense of like, oh, they're all committing suicide because of this thing, and it was giving me the sense that maybe they're not the victims in this movie. Like they're like the ghost is the victim, and this is like what's happening as a result. And I like that. The other scene that I thought was really effective actually is during the flashbacks. It's when Nitri tries to commit suicide, and she's like cut herself with the glass, and she's just sitting there with the glass. I thought that was really effective. Which again is another suicide thing. I guess what I'm saying is this movie handles suicide in a really sort of effective kind of like desperate kind of way. Like you feel the somber mood of like where they are mentally.
Yeah, there's definitely I guess just moodiness about it that like really hits you.
Now, a scene that didn't work so well is when Jane dreams that Nitri comes out of a toilet. Because we have to have a scene where the ghost with long hair comes out of something, kind of like The Ring, out the TV. Instead, we have her coming out of the septic tank at the toilet.
Yeah. There was a few like weird. I don't know if this is supposed to be like more comedic part, like little scenes in the movie. I guess especially like dealing with bathroom stuff.
Oh, do you want to talk about the poo scene?
Yeah, that was just weird, and you know what? Until the punchline of it, I did think, oh, this is like a little bit of a creepy scene, like he's in the bathroom and
Yeah.
he runs out of toilet paper, so he knocks on the stall next to him, and you see someone like these hands with like painted red fingernails
Yeah,
drop the toilet paper.
yeah, it's quite clearly a woman's hand. It's very feminine.
But then and then he
So he thinks it's the ghost. Just to be clear, he gets scared because obviously we assume it's a men's bathroom. It's not like a unisex bathroom, and he gets scared because he thinks it's the ghost. So he runs out and he kicks in the door, and it's just this random woman. We don't know why she's using this bathroom. She just is, and she's like scared for like a split second, and then she just sort of smiles and goes, "Can I at least poo first?" What, you're game for sex with this stranger? What?
No, I wasn't sure if it was like, was the joke supposed to be that, oh, this is actually like a man? Like, it definitely looked like a woman, but I didn't know if like the joke was supposed to be that it was a like cross-dressing man or something.
I don't think it was. No, there was nothing. There was nothing about her that made me think it was anything like that.
I don't know. Just I was trying to think of like, I don't know. Is there? It just seems like so weird. I don't know if there's like some other joke.
Honestly, Tim, I think the joke is, no, I want to have sex, but can I poo first? Just imagine saying that. Not even in this situation. Imagine you're at home with a girlfriend. You're sitting watching TV, and you start to make a move. He goes, yeah, Tim. Yeah, no, I'm up for some sex, but I need to poo first.
Yeah.
Because I think typically most people go, let's wait half an hour after that. I'm not. I don't want to go straight down there after the poo.
Yeah.
It's just a normal thing. But that's why it was funny to me. Well, that and the fact that she's a stranger as well. That's another big part of it that makes it humorous.
Yeah. And also, like, the movie is pretty, somber and, tense for the most part, to have this really weird
it's got a cold atmosphere.
Yeah. And then this is and it's not like you can't have like little jokes or humor or something about it, but this is like kind of a type of gag that you wouldn't think would happen in this movie.
Yeah, there wasn't any little jokes sprinkled throughout. The movie was very serious. There was not a lot of jokes, and then this gag just comes out of nowhere. Which, to be fair, it made me laugh, so I can't.
Yeah, I can't say that it wasn't funny.
I mean, admittedly, I don't know how much of that laughter was because I was just in shock that it suddenly gave me this really stupid joke, rather than the joke itself being that funny. No, actually, not what. Can I poo first is a pretty funny line. I'm not going to, like...
Also, I might have to rewatch it, but I think it's kind of faint, so it might be... Maybe I was hearing it wrong, or... I'm not sure, but I think there's like a fart sound when he knocks open the door. I
don't know, Tim. I don't know.
Because I didn't notice it at first, and then I rewound it because I was like, wait a minute, did I just see what I thought I saw? When I watched it the second time, I think I heard a fart sound, but who knows?
So, so the night before the actual cremation, when the couple's in the hotel, Ton and Jane.
They have to like beg the mom, like, can you just have like a funeral, please, for your daughter, so she stops haunting us?
Yeah, because they think putting her to rest, and I'm like, this is too easy. This is not going to fix anything. But they think. And
I did like when they like first go to her house. I thought it was kind of cool how the mother's talking about her as if she is alive, and like, what?
Mm-hmm.
And I almost thought like it added like another mystery to, oh, maybe the ghost isn't who we think it is.
Or she's alive, and that maybe opens up like, okay, how's this happening then? Is she like doing witchcraft maybe? And it's her, but she's not dead, and kind of thing. But no, she's dead. As we find out, she's basically just doing the whole psycho thing. She's got her corpse of her daughter in the bedroom. But yeah, the night before the cremation, like, basically he gets attacked in the hotel, and she starts chasing him throughout the hotel. She gives him visions of Jane, like with a wrist slit and things like that, and he's running throughout, and he's scared, and he eventually climbs out the window, and he's climbing down the ladder that's on the side of this building, and I did like how the ghost was like climbing down the ladder, but upside down.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was a really cool image because as much as most of the stuff with the long haired ghost was like, oh, this is just another Ring knockoff kind of moment. This one was at least it was in that style. Don't get me wrong. This wouldn't feel out of place in a Ring movie or a Grudge movie, but it did. It was cool enough and unique enough that I hadn't seen it before. That I was like, oh, that's pretty badass.
Yeah.
I did, however, think it was a little bit cheap. So I didn't mind the jump scare that comes next is that he looks back down and she's like through the ladder on the other side, like between the wall and the ladder, looking at him.
Oh, yeah.
And I was fine with that, but then I thought it was weird that he starts climbing down again, and he looks back up and she's climbing upside down the way again. I thought, why is she back to there? Make up your mind, movie. You can't.
Yeah.
Like having her go back to that felt really weird. But the actual image of her coming down upside down the ladder was really cool. So I'll give them props for that too. So, like I say, there was like 2 or 3 really effective moments that I thought worked in terms of horror that I thought worked really well. And I thought the actual plot and the setup for what the movie's really about, because what the movie's really about, it's about guilt and basically, because even before you find out there was the rape element, you got the impression that he and his group of friends were responsible for her committing suicide. They caused this. They drove someone to this, and this is about the guilt that you will feel if you do this to someone. So I think there's actually a deeper message to the movie, which a lot of the best horror movies have, and I think that works really well in this case. So basically, after they think everything's fine and some time passes because they go on a vacation, they go to the beach, which we see because she picks up some photographs of their trip.
And also, I want to mention real quick because we haven't really talked about it, but going back to your point of how the movie sets like all these different things up, I like how there's little hints about his like neck or his back or whatever hurting.
Yes.
And he had got like a physical, and they said he had gained a lot of weight, even though he's a pretty skinny guy. Doesn't really look like he's that overweight.
Yeah.
But I thought those were some good like lead ups to the end.
Yeah, he's constantly got a sore neck. He goes to the hospital and he's put on the weight. Yeah. But so basically, again, like earlier on in the movie, like these photographs show up in all the. Again, this is what makes it tell you it's 2004 because going to a shop to pick up your photographs that have been developed is very much an old thing now. But she gets these extra photographs that are inside their house, their apartment, which is creepy because it's like we didn't take those. But again, there's a ghost in them, and she actually does this thing, and I love this idea of like the ghost moving through all the photos. So she does the cartoon thing where she like flicks the photos to make it move. I thought that was really cool. But again, it wasn't to be scary. It was the ghost trying to show her something. And earlier on when Tom was around, he mentioned where's the photograph, so we knew there was something hidden somewhere to be found.
Yeah, but I thought this was just piggybacking on what you said. This looked pretty cool. It was inventive. The visual of her, just crawling through towards the bookcase or bookshelf, whatever.
Yeah. It was inventive, and I like that. I thought, because up until the last 5 minutes, I thought the movie wasn't really using the camera gimmick very well. It felt like it wasn't really doing much with it. Then the last 5 minutes, with the photo flicking, and then what he ends up doing in the final scene, it finally felt like, it's really using it now, which is cool. But she finds these photos, and she finds this photo of like the friends all pinning Nitre down, and what's his face, Ton. I call him Tom a minute ago. Ton is like sort of almost on top of her, and then we get the full flashback where they like Ton more than any of them is the one who rapes her, but like the others are all compliant. They hold her down, and now Tun's not there to begin with, but he walks in at the end, and again, much like the car crash, he doesn't intervene. He doesn't do the right thing. He kind of just lets it be, and to the point where he is forced to take a photograph of it, which is obviously the evidence that we're looking at. But you get the sense, so it's like a double guilt for him though, because even if he didn't know this girl, this would be an horrendous thing to do, to not respond to it anyway. The fact that he was also secretly dating her and didn't do anything to help her, like she actually says his name. It's actually probably the most heartbreaking moment in the movie when she looks up at him and says, "Ton, please help me." When we've seen they've been intimate together and stuff, and he just freezes and takes a photograph.
I wasn't crazy about this. Like, sure, it definitely gives, motivation for you to want, to see the ghost get revenge on these people. But I don't know. I felt like, did you really have to go the rape route? Like, it's just so, I don't know, kind of upsetting. Like, I feel like, they could have, if they did do some type of like bullying or something to try to get her to like, drop out, or something that eventually led to her suicide. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, admittedly, it didn't necessarily have to be rape. I think that's a fair point. It could have been something else where they just did something awful to her. And similarly, like Tun just wouldn't have intervened again. Maybe he walked in and I don't know. Maybe they poured stuff on her and said something to her. But they went full on horrific. But hold on a second. I will kind of stick up for it a little bit in this sense, just because the movie is about guilt.
Sure.
And the whole thing's about the ultimate guilt of what he's done and or in this case what he didn't do. And I think it's a sensitive subject, and I think a lot of movies are guilty of using rape in a very sort of flippant way, where it's it's the easy thing to do for the revenge thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know if maybe this movie quite earns it. Like, admittedly, I don't know if it's good enough to really justify it. But I at least understand the intent. Like, I understand why they chose it in this case, because it is about... Because the whole thing is about how horrifying it is. Because it's really the real horror of the movie. The actual scary ghost stuff, for the most part, doesn't really work that much. But it's the guilt over what he's done that actually works.
Sure. Yeah, I'll definitely give it that. Yeah. And there's been plenty of other... movies
worse examples that
have been a lot poor taste. It's just one of those things where like I get why they did it in this movie. It's just like I'm never excited to see it. Like once you kind of see that's where it's going, I'm just kind of like
to be fair, that type of scene should never feel comfortable though. It should always feel
true.
Yeah. If they're playing it and it's not uncomfortable, then they are doing something wrong, or there's something wrong with you and you need to go and see a psychiatrist.
Now, my quick question on it is, so they're doing this, and then they say, to Tun, like, quick, take a picture for proof, or something like that.
I feel like I know what you're going to ask, and I'm pretty sure I do not have an answer, but go on.
Well, yeah, like, isn't that just like... It's pretty much like saying, hey, quick, get some like evidence for this crime we're about to commit.
Yeah, I'm not sure why he asked for a photo either. I think
my initial thought was like, I don't know if if it's a different culture, if like maybe they're kind of different, stigmatas when it comes to this thing, where it's like even if you are the victim, you're still like, it's kind of a shameful thing.
Maybe I can see that. I'm not sure, but I wouldn't want to speculate that without actually knowing. Right, so I would more maybe go to the idea that he wants Tun to be equally involved as everyone else, because at this point he's not like the other two have held him down. He's actually committed the act. Tun needs also to be in, because otherwise Tun could go to the police and help her and say something. I'm taking it as almost a thing. If you take a photo, you're kind of involved in the whole thing now. That makes you part of this.
That makes sense. Yeah.
I think that maybe with a mix of it's extra humiliation for her if he's really trying to rub it in. Look, not only is this your worst moment possible, there is now like an image of it, there's existence, there's a memory. We can show this to you, kind of thing. Admittedly, I still think it's a bit stupid. I think if you're committing a crime, the last thought in my head is someone snap a photo for Snapchat, because
it's going to make a great Throwback Thursday.
Yeah, I need to document
once
this.
That's the thing.
So, yeah, that's a fair question. But yeah. So upon hearing this, of course, Jane decides to, quite rightly, say, "No, we're breaking up. I'm done with you. Get away from me, you rapist." And
go
leaves. Jane. I think at this point, like, if you had... I mean, we said this earlier on about, finding out that he basically refused to admit to his friends that he was dating her and let them bully her. Which, by the way, is it just me, or did that feel like something that should have been when they were all like 13 instead of college aged?
Maybe. It didn't really like cross my mind, but I think there are still like, humongous jerks and creeps that would still do that kind of stuff. But like if it's a peer pressure thing, definitely by college, like you shouldn't be as acceptable about that. You should be able to stand up if you think something is wrong.
It felt really strange to me that this went on. Don't get me wrong, like given that it goes to a rape place, it would feel really weird if it was much younger as well, for obvious reasons. But it felt really immature, the way they were being.
Also, I wasn't sure, like, because they all pretty much looked the same. I didn't know how much of a flashback this is. Like, is this 1 year ago, 5 years ago? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was hard to tell, especially since Jane seems to still be in, which by the way was really throwing me. Is apparently they all wear uniforms when they're in college in Thailand. Just going by this movie, like, because they're all wearing the same white shirt when they're in the flashbacks, and then she's wearing the white shirt when she's at her class, in the middle of the movie. But so she leaves quite rightly, and you're basically chewing at this point. Like, you have no sympathy for this guy. You're like, no, I want you to get killed now. Like, I'm ready to watch you die. And this is where it kind of confirms that the ghost was trying to help her. She was trying to tell her, look, don't trust him. He's awful. He's a douchebag. He's the worst of the worst. Leave. And you actually feel some satisfaction as he tries to, like, I can explain. It's like, explain what?
There's no explanation.
There's no explanation. Like, what are you going to say, that some mystical wizard said that if you don't let this happen, we're going to like kill 10 children?
Yeah.
Like, so she leaves, and then he's on his own. This is when it gets inventive again with the camera, because he starts to realize that if he takes pictures, maybe he can see her. So he gets the Polaroid out and he starts snapping photos all over the place. He's getting desperate. He's trying to find them. And then eventually he throws the camera down in a rage, and it takes a photo as it lands, aiming at him. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. She's going to be on him. And sure enough, we get like a quick flashback thing to the rest of the movie where it's like, oh, like she, like, my neck's sore, I've gained weight. And then he looks in the photo, and sure enough, she's been on his shoulders the entire movie. And I kind of love this, because then he starts like, you know, running around. He's like panicking every time like he looks at the mirror, or like not when he looks specifically, but like sometimes when it looks at the mirror we see her on top of him, and sometimes we don't. So he's kind of like, it's cutting between them, and it's kind of frantic. And then he eventually like dives out the window and lands on a car. Good riddance. He's not actually dead though, because we see Jane come by the hospital at the end, and she looks in. He's basically like got his like skull all fractured and is like stitched up. He looks like a vegetable basically. And we see that she's still on his shoulders, and it's like, you know what? I'm going to take this as a happy ending. The movie basically takes its time just explaining how much these characters deserve this, and it's like, yeah, okay. And that part to me is what made the movie interesting. It made it less than, just a Ring knockoff, even though some of the ghosty bits were just kind of like, yeah, here's something that's like The Ring.
Yeah, no, I definitely enjoyed that. It's it gives you a nice reason to actually root for the ghost in this instance,
which we're used to with slasher movies. Although admittedly, it's a much more of a thin thing. It's just kind of like, oh, it's fun. Let's get some cool kills. Kill the teenagers. Just do it. Whereas with this, it's like, no, like I actually want them to die. Like I hate him. Kill him, please. He's awful.
Yeah, and then I feel like it was it was a little bit of a shame though. Like I feel like the ending scene wasn't like that cool. Like when you see like the door, swinging, and you see her in the reflection of it, just because like, oh, I feel like we just saw this like a couple of seconds ago. Like it's not as much of a shock because like that was the big reveal we just got like 5 minutes earlier.
I don't think it was meant to be a shock though. I think it was just that she's always going to be with them. Again, it's just a metaphor for the guilt. Like the guilt is always going to be there. That's true. Or it should be. The problem was though is he wasn't accepting his guilt, but eventually it caught up with them, which is kind of what the movie's actually about. Now, admittedly, I think in the hands of like an even better filmmaker, we could have, or maybe not even filmmaker, and just an even better script, it could have became like a fantastic movie. It could have became like something that's as good as It Follows with its messaging. Like, it's got like a deep thing in there. As it is, the actual scary stuff's a bit weaker, and as a result, it ends up just being an okay to good movie as opposed to a great movie. But
it's like an okay movie sprinkled with really good parts, like maybe
yeah,
like 2 or 3 really good things in there.
yeah, a couple of good parts and a really couple of good ideas.
I don't know if you know off the top of your head, but I don't think it's ever really what became a franchise. Like other than the remake, I don't think there's like 4 or 5 other Shudder movies that we don't know about.
I will find out. I do not see a Shutter 2 on IMDb from my quick search. Nah.
Alright.
Nah, just the remake. That was just this. Which, to be fair, makes sense, I think.
And then, did you say you saw the remake?
No, I've never seen it.
Okay. I don't remember it, but I'm sure I saw it. So it's probably not a good...
Wait, so you think you saw the remake and yet you didn't really know where this movie was going, like beyond like just what you were expecting from what the movie was telling you.
I really don't remember it at all, and I already don't have a great memory. And you're talking about something I would have seen 9 years? Is 2000? Yeah, so it would have been about 9 years ago that it came out. Because this would have been when I was working at Blockbuster, and I like rented everything that came out, especially horror movies. So I'm sure I saw this, but these were some of my most hated movies, though, like the U.S. remakes of a lot of the Asian horror movies that I liked. So I'm sure I probably blocked it out of memory.
I think that's fair. Well, I guess we're on to some ratings then.
Ratings. I think I'm gonna go with a solid 7 on this one.
All right, okay. I'm actually surprised you went with a 7. I thought you were going to go a bit lower than that.
I was dancing like 6.5, 7-ish territory.
Yeah,
but
I think I'm going to go with a 7 as well. I didn't think I was going to go with that high when I started this review, but talking about it more has actually made me appreciate the script a bit more.
I think all the stuff you pointed out, like the bright spots, really elevate it. Like it could have easily been just a 6 or 6.5 movie, but then just some of those elements and
I think the fact that it's actually about something, it's not just like scares for scares sake, like because it's actually about someone's guilt and it's about the guilt catching up to them. I think because it's actually about something, it's almost a shame the scary stuff isn't better, because if the movie was like hitting like that stuff as well, it'd be like, oh man, this would probably want to be a classic. It'd probably be something that everyone would be talking about.
You know what I think it is we mentioned how like some of the scares and the ghost stuff was derivative, but the story wasn't, which I think is kind of the key point. It's like even if you have stuff that's kind of cliche, but it's centered around a story that you hadn't really seen before, or at least something that hasn't been done a million times, that kind of elevates it a little bit.
Yeah, I think maybe I think it ultimately comes down to direction, not to throw the director under the bus.
Oh yeah.
The directors being, oh my god, Banjong Pisanthanakun and Parkpoom Wongpoom. Apologies if I butchered those names, but they're obviously not words that I'm used to saying. They I feel like, yeah, you can have the cliched scenes, but I don't even think a lot of the horror scenes were well directed, which is weird because some of the other scenes are well directed, I thought, but the actual scary stuff, for the most part, there was a couple of good examples, but most of it wasn't that fun.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because, like I said, there's actually some good ideas in there, and it's actually about something. So for that reason, I'm going to give it a 7. And it is legitimately a movie that got better as it went along, because I think, the opening act just kind of feels like it is just going to be a Ring knockoff, and it's like, oh, this will probably be like a 5 out of 10, and you're kind of thinking that way. And then it's as it goes, by the time I got to the end, it was like, oh, that was better than it started. It became something, and it's nice to see that. So
yeah, I would definitely say the second half was stronger than the first. Like it gets better the more you start knowing stuff and figuring out stuff.
Yeah, but as you know what it's about. Yeah. So no, I think do you know what I think it is? I think it because as the second half of the movie goes on, it becomes less about the mystery of the ghost and more about the guilt of what happened. and it's
Right, yeah.
and that's actually more interesting because the mystery wasn't that interesting in and of itself, but once we
Yeah.
knew what the mystery was, it was like, okay, now we focus on the drama of it, the character of it, and that stuff was actually quite good. So so again, it could have been tighter, could have had a better script, but there are some great ideas in there. So I would recommend checking it out if you can get a hold of it, and see what you think of it. But
And I know it's on Shudder right now, but they are getting rid of it. But if you watch this early enough, check it out. It might still be there.
possibly. So there we go. That is Shutter. So thank you very much for watching. Let us know what you think of the movie in the comments below. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. You can help us out one step beyond that though by going over to patreon.com/MailedFuzzTV. See some of the cool bonuses. One of which includes voting for a movie once a month on a bonus episode. I believe the voting for the June episode that gets voted for in May, the voting on that's closed. The voting in June for the July episode will open pretty soon. So we'll probably be telling you about that in the next episode, what the options are. We already know what they are, but we'll reveal that next time. So yeah, so you'll look forward to that. But otherwise, guys, that is us. So thank you very much for watching once again. Keep watching scary movies. We'll see you next time.